What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and it's been a minute, but we're coming back and continuing on our Birthright domain reviews, and we finally finished up the Heartlands and moved into the Northern Marches. And so we start off with basically the largest of the ones that is available to you as far as physical domains, and that's Dhoesone. Probably mispronouncing it slightly, but hit us up in the comments with your pronunciation of it. But anyway, so a fun domain, an interesting one, and again, we'll pop back here just a page just to kind of give you guys an overview of where it is. So basically, it's the northernmost of the Northern March domains as far as realms that are actually part of Annuir, or the former empire. So, and we'll get to Cariel eventually, but those are the two main human ones there, and again, ones that are part of Annuir specifically for you. So, and again, very interesting because you are essentially surrounded by not necessarily friends, and yet very close proximity to basically the big bad guy of the whole campaign system. Elves are not exactly friendly in the setting, although you do have a special relationship between these two. The Giant Downs is basically one giant lawless territory. I'm not going to call it a domain because it's not really properly settled. It's not a kingdom or anything like that. But basically, just imagine a territory where there are lots and lots of giants of various flavors. To the north, Stjordvik, and then the other Uric realms, basically. So think you are bordering essentially one of the other major cultures and peoples of the setting here, and in just loose translation, essentially Vikings or Norse. And then on your southern border, you have Thorazor, so an actual like goblin kingdom. Cariel is small, but not necessarily friendly. At least certainly on the trade front there, not necessarily a military threat. And you're still kind of roughly in that area of the Five Peaks, and not too far from that. So also another lawless sort of territory. But again, you are essentially the frontier, and as the numbers here indicate, not overly well settled. So let's pop back here because this one is one of those realms that is basically a double pager. So there's lots and lots to unpack here. So it's essentially neutral, right? Recommended. So certainly for player characters. And then if you want to go with the existing ruler, it's Fiel Dhoesone, rules the 12 provinces as the Baroness. So when you're like, whoa, 12 provinces, man, that's a huge territory. I've got a lot to work with. Yes, but you also have a lot of problems. And as you can see here, none of them are particularly well settled. Your best one is Sonnenland as level 4. So, and everything else are 3s, 2s, and 1s, right? So sparsely populated frontier, and again, just lots and lots of issues. And as you can look in on the law column there, you don't really control all the law in your domain. That's very complicated. Temples, also a lot going on there. Now on the guild side, again, other issues persist there. And then fortunately, at least on the sources side, you have some control over that, and we'll get into that in just a bit here. So, again, lots going on internally and externally, and this is not an easy one. So, if you're, I would say, either a newer player, but also just maybe a little bit less experienced, this is going to be, I'd say, a domain that's going to be hard to play. So, it really should not be an easy path. So, that's something, again, that the DM will have to really take into account because, again, there's just so many pressing issues. But let's get into it here, and it'll make more sense as we cover everything here. So she holds half the kingdom's law and the domain's guilds the other half. So there's already a problem there because the guilds certainly are looking out for the guilds by and large, right? So that will be one area that will need to be addressed. If you're running this domain, you need to get a little bit more control of it, basically. So temples. The temples, 3 temples dominate. So you have the Oaken Grove of Eric, which is, again, also pretty prevalent with the Rurik people. So, again, more focused on nature. And you have these competing interests. On the one hand, you need to develop your territory, and that in large part involves, lumber, things like that. And then, again, just developing and cultivating the land. But you also have a lot of people that again, being on the frontier, a lot of people that are of mixed descent and things like that, so that want to sort of protect the sort of natural bounty and natural wonders of your domain as well. So you kind of have to have a balancing act there. Then Halen's Bastion of Truth, and then the Northern Reformed Church of Saramie, which is very prevalent in Cariel. The Bastion, though foremost for now, is losing its grasp rapidly. So again, people are wanting essentially sort of to enjoy the fruits of their labors. And so Saramier, for example, is gaining a lot of influence there, which we'll see more in when we get to Cariel. Speaking of guilds running half the show, and this is always a tough one to pronounce, Mielier Byrion from Cariel. And again, we'll spend more time with her when we get to that domain properly, but she owns a lot of the guild activity here. And again, this is kind of an overt and covert power struggle here to not just influence the law, but also again, it's like a three-way sort of guild battle here. Anyway, Adar Donheim, level 5 thief, and then Galian Thuriad, also a thief there. Very minor bloodlines on those guys, and then Banier and Andean, another thief, and then Storm Holston, who's definitely got a lot of influence up with the Rurik domains of Stjordvik. All struggle fiercely to dominate the foresting guilds of Dhoesone. Though they dislike each other, they join forces to thwart the Baroness when she tries to pass anti-lumbering laws. These ruffians' combined influences made life more oppressive for the average citizen. So really, you have not just the three guilds there, technically the five, and it's all really, they're all working against you. So uphill battle there, as it says. So anytime you try to get anything accomplished, they put aside their differences to thwart you. So somewhere in there, you're going to have to find a chink in that armor and sort of work to play them against each other, and then use that to overall start eroding some of their influence. You've got to get control of your realm. So I would look to find ways of doing that. Sources. So the mages Clumine and Derek Dhoesone are cousins and rivals, so you have family at least taking care of the magical parts of your kingdom. These two relatives of her hate each other almost as much as they love the Baroness. So then, just depending on your campaign, that dislike of each other there may or may not, be too serious. Now, interestingly, you do have a pretty decent little army, but again, it's a large territory, and so you're really spread pretty thin. And again, given the issues with some of your neighbors here, you know, it's not as impressive as it might seem here. So anyway, Regency generated and accumulated 33 versus 21 there, and then 14 guild bars sitting in the treasury. But again, that's probably going to come down pretty quickly because you have a lot of work to do to, again, get control of your realm, eliminate some of the other people's influences, and then start, really finding a way to turn a profit, rule up the realm, and perhaps not, completely destroy your natural resources in the process. So, Dhoesone's army is not large. The local militia amounts to one unit of irregulars, though more residents would like to join. The barons can't afford to equip them. So, in other words, money shortages, right? You might raise the units, but you're just not pulling in enough money yet to deal with keeping them around. But anyway, you have one unit of irregulars, two elf archers, and one unit of elf cavalry, and we'll see why that's there in just a moment. And then a unit of goblin infantry, interestingly enough, and then 2 units of knights. So the non-human ones essentially are on loan, and we'll see that in just a second. So really, you have a unit of irregulars and 2 units of knights. That's your army. So just depending on how your foreign policies play out, some of those other units might not always be there. So she pays maintenance for the irregulars and the goblin infantry only. The other units are gifts from the kingdom of Tuar Hievel and various Anawirian domains. So these kingdoms consider Dhoesone too important to let fall due to lack of money to pay defenders, and so that's something you might play up a little bit too. You are essentially the frontier, literally the sort of first bastion of defense here against the wild and uncivilized north and other non-humans there. So you might play up those calls for aid a little bit more, and whether that's to help pay for more military or use it to fund other things, you might sort of play that sympathy card to start getting things done for your realm. So the Baroness here, so she is a half elf, level 6 thief, pretty solid bloodline there as a true neutral. And so she is the daughter of the old Baron of Dhoesone and the former Queen of Tuatha. Some call the partnership between her parents nothing more than a diplomatic move, but while the queen still lived, humans had little to fear from the neighboring elf kingdom. Now, that kingdom's climate has grown harsher for Anawirans who would travel the elven wood, so tenuous at best of times. So, again, that just depends on what the DMs in your campaign is going to want to throw at you, but also worth noting, if you're adventuring up in that area. The proud, pragmatic Fiel Dhoesone bears the burdens of rulership well. However, some say her power slips in the face of the guilds that dominate the trade. She tries to discourage these rumors, but short of passing a decree banning such talk, which she would never consider, she really has no way to stop it. So again, right now, that is, again, primary concern. The guilds have way too much power and influence, and really the fact that they will put aside their differences to work against you is a major problem. So that's probably your single biggest obstacle to getting things done internally. Now, lieutenants, so include her two human mage cousins, each of whom will do whatever he can to to aid her without helping the other. And that's something that you might need to find a way to quash and resolve there. Again, putting the kingdom first, or the barony first here. Also, the old baron left behind his trusted advisor, Halen Dossier, a relation to the chamberlain of the imperial capital. And again, you might play up that relationship or look to cultivate that a little bit more. So she manages to accomplish impossible tasks routinely. So again, you have some trusted people close in your court there. Important NPCs. So though your advisor there is unblooded, oversees much of the kingdom's operations, she's largely the reasons the guilds don't gain more power than they already hold. Another person of note is the half-elf Rimak Talon, a 6th-level ranger whose knowledge of the land and intuitive grasp of strategy has kept the Giant Downs inhabitants from overpowering the kingdom. So again, Giant Downs, not really a kingdom by any means, just a loose collection of territories, but you have essentially rampaging, marauding groups of giants of various flavors, again, that come down from that territory and kind of just plunder and pillage a little bit and then kind of go back. But so, as if your problems weren't enough, you have that to deal with as well. So then the description, right? Again, we mentioned frontier, and this is getting fairly far north. So half windswept moor and half pine forest. It seems a land barely tamed. Despite its numerous logging camps, it remains home to elf tribes rumored to live among the pines. The people of the forest act secretive and keep to themselves. They can feel the guild's presence among them, and they know a wrong word can cause a logging accident for them or their families. Still, to those who have gained their trust, the people of Dhoesone appear friendly and sometimes even helpful, in particular to those who work against the guilds. So, might be a way of cultivating some way to start, again, dealing with the guilds. The people of the moors, or the moor, are shepherds, ever wary of natural dangers like peat bogs, ravines, Uric hunters. Again, you have that to deal with, and roaming giants as well. So just depending on what part of your land, which part of your territories that is. This hardy breed, accustomed to the wind and harsh land, lives a life only vaguely Anuiran. Instead, these folk seek to emulate the nearby Urics. Though insular, they will share their unique knowledge with travelers for the right coin. And again, another thing to consider while adventuring up here. So this is, again, sort of a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multiracial sort of hodgepodge frontier domain with, again, some very real existential threats here in the form of, again, the giants, possibly goblins, and certainly the Gorgon as well, who we'll cover when we get as we get through this Northern Marches territories here. So the capital here is the city Sonnenlind, located in the central province of the same name. Though not a big city, it is one of the largest north of the Stone Crowns. And again, that is probably also where you should start to at least gain 100% control of your capital province and the city, and then build your power base from there and start spreading out, and again, start playing off the guilds against each other so you can gain more influence over your actual country. The products of Dhoesone include wood-based goods and lumber. The trade of animal hides thrives here too, but the Baroness has forbidden the overhunting of certain species. Naturally, this law only adds to the value of the pelts. Nolian, on the bay, holds a seaport that leads to Ice Haven in Telenie. One of the largest roads in Anuir leads south from Sonnenlind through Cariel. So you got, again, trading connections there, although some of those trading connections are also there to help support some of the guilders that we've mentioned there. So again, you might look to cultivate other trade routes and things as well, but again, not at the expense of your natural resources, right? Allies. So you have this odd pact, this weird relationship here with the Goblin Kingdom of Thorazor. So you have pretty free trade flowing between them, but every once in a while the goblins get a little bit bored and kind of raid. So you have to essentially renew this relationship over and over again. Some say the Baroness has traded away part of her guild interest in the hope of retiring or retaining this treaty. The goblins provide 1 unit of infantry for her army as part of this pact. In return for taking these sometimes less than model soldiers off the Goblin King's hands, the king welcomes goods of Dhoesone into Thorazor. So you have an inroad there for some of your goods, but what to do with those goblins? So you might find creative uses for sort of disposing of them. So kind of like putting them on the northern frontier there, maybe pitting them against the giants a little bit. If the Goblin King in Thorazor there really kind of wants to be rid of them. Certainly they would be expendable, so might be worth considering there. Or you might even consider breaking off that relationship, but again, that's going to have some consequences for you there, and really your army, as is, might put up a fight for a while against Thorazor, but again, it's as is, you don't really have the power to engage in that until a lot of other things change here. So the Baroness has also made a pact with her older half-brother Philarain, Prince of Tuar-Viel. This agreement allows her to cease fearing for at least one of her borders. He has even sent a force of elf knights to help defend her kingdom. But, what are his true motives there? So that's something worth exploring. And again, just depends on how the DM and how your campaign is going there. Certainly worth noting, again, if you're adventuring in and around there. So nominally, at least, there's peace and cooperation there, but just knowing and getting into the history and the relationships between the elves and essentially any of the humans in this setting, it's often tenuous at best there. So, and not all humans certainly aren't always tolerated, and not hardly ever really in any of the elven realms at all there. So, enemies. The one bordering kingdom with which it has consistently maintained poor relations is strangely Cariel. The only other Enuiran kingdom in the area tries to outdo them in everything and blocks your actions as well, because again, the Gilder there, Byrion, she doesn't run Cariel, but essentially, at least officially, but kind of runs it behind the scenes. So she owns multiple guilds and has lots of power and influence there, but is also kind of the real power behind the throne there. So so directly and indirectly kind of blocking your efforts there too. So that is probably going to be your most formidable foe, but again, you have other fish to fry initially there. So yeah, both through legal and illegal means. So there's lots of things going on there. The only apparent reason for this behavior is that Dhoesone denied the suit of Entier Gladinil, Cariel's regent. So basically she chose not to marry that guy there. So, and perhaps wisely so. As always, faces danger from the Giant Downs and the Barony of the Crimson Skull and Rurik Land. So that wasn't quite on the map, but another sort of chaotic and bad realm to deal with there. So basically a realm of Orogs that will just raid anyone and anything nearby whenever they get up to that. So the monsters of these domains spawn frequently march on Dhoesone, right? So you have basically non-humans as a problem to deal with from the north and various basically north, northwest, northeast. There you have not so friendly relations with the other human realm to your south, and which is really also your main connection overland through the rest of Anywhere. You got goblins on the southwest. You have elves, which at least again nominally appear to be allied with you on your eastern border. So lots to deal with, and again internally the country is kind of shaky as well. So you have your work cut out for you. Finally, the special conditions here. So not all the elves recognize humans as friends. Hunters and adventurers are often slain if they wander in the wrong areas of the woods. Travelers usually stick to the main roads, right? So again, whether you're running the kingdom here, so you might if there's a lot of that happening, that might cause issues for you as well. People might not feel safe. and that might be on purpose, with these other people trying to sort of not let you get things done as a ruler, but again, for adventuring purposes too. So rather rough and dangerous here, as befitting sort of this frontier domain. So that is our big tour through Dhoesone, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments there. If you've run this domain in campaigns, how has it fared? What kind of interesting things have happened for you? And if you've adventured in the Northern Marches and gone through here, what, again, has happened in your campaigns. Love to hear from you. Hit us up in the comments there, guys. We'll be continuing on with Cariel next and moving our way through the Northern Domains. Thanks so much for stopping, and as always, take care, guys.